I hope you find this tutorial helpful for the 12-ply ribbed hand warmers. Thank you for purchasing my pattern. You'll be starting off with two 50-gram balls of 12-ply and a 5mm crochet hook. When you've completed the number of chains as per the pattern, you are skipping your first two chains and beginning your first half double crochet in the third chain from the hook. Remembering that the two chains you have skipped will be in the count of completed stitches. And your completed row will look like this. One chain to turn each row, and then we are going to begin our yarn over slip stitch back loop only. And again, yarn over your hook through the back loop, draw that yarn through and then slip it through. Now you'll notice I pop my thumb at the base of the stitches. I find that this helps me be able to hold everything and to get the slip stitch through easily. Always do this work relatively loosely. And there's your first 5 rows completed. Look how nice the yarn over slip stitch works, creating a really nice ribbed effect. When you've completed your full 29 rows, then you'll fold it in half and you'll begin your seamed area with your thumb gap, using a crochet method to do this. You'll be counting along each side, placing a marker in the stitch and holding position, counting along each side for the gap, for the thumb, and then placing a second marker. That area is the top fingers, and below the yellow is where your wrist is. So we're starting at the wrist end. Right, we will pull that loop through to the other side, secure it with a chain, and then you're going to begin taking that first stitch and the very first stitch on the opposite side and slip stitching these together. Now your opposite side is the original chain you started with, and just slip stitching there. Now because your final row of the pattern has slip stitches in this lower area, ensure you have done them loosely, otherwise you may find it difficult picking up these stitches. As you can see, I've probably done mine a little bit firmer and I'm having a little bit of fun getting my hook through. Right, let's race through to the marker, keeping your stitches corresponding as you go. And once we get up to the top end, we're going to continue doing our slip stitching right through to the marker stitches. There's our last stitches there, slip stitch. Now we're going to go through the stitch that we've marked. So just pop out your marker carefully and grab the stitch closest to you, pop the marker out, grab the stitch on the opposite side, and that is your final slip stitch for the wrist area. Now to ensure that it doesn't gape open and pull, we will be doing a chain, but let's have a look at the seam and make sure we're happy before we go any further. And it should look nice and neat and even. Right, let's do that chain to secure the work. It does make a difference holding it firm. And then we're going to continue on the other side, which is your beginning chain, picking up each loop as a stitch, each chain, and slip stitching our way across there. Now when we get up to the pink marker, we're going to slip stitch into that final stitch. then we're going to remove the marker, just keeping a note there. Leave it in that stitch, pull your loop up, remove your hook, and pop your hook into the side where the marker is still sitting, into that stitch. Now what we're going to do is we're going to draw that loop through to the other side, and we're going to secure with a chain. Here's our thumb gap. Secure with a chain, and then you will continue to do your slip stitch right through to the top. Now if you can hear birds in the background, I do live in a caravan. I am outdoors while I am recording this voice over the video, and so you get to hear some of the bird chatter in the background. Now I do apologise at the end here, my hands do slip slightly out of view from the camera, but you're basically working into each stitch corresponding right through to the end and securing in that very last stitch, and again one chain to hold. Now I like to try the glove on and just see the hand warmer, see how it is sitting. If you're finding that the thumb hole is too big or too small, then you can adjust that stitch count where you place your markers. Now we're going to begin doing the small band across the top, the finger area, but before we do that, let's place a marker at the halfway point of both the finger point and the wrist end point. This will just help you get even stitches along that edge as you're counting them in. Now you're going to crochet this band with the right side facing you. So let's grab that loop and begin crocheting. Now we're going to work around 13 stitches to the marker, and then we're going to work another 13 stitches back around to the beginning. These are single crochets as per the US terms used for the purpose of this tutorial. Now once you get to the end of the round, we are going to slip stitch the round together. And this will join it. Now we are going to then create a chain and continue. It's really important you do not turn your work. You will continue stitching. You will begin now your yarn over slip stitch back loop only and work 3 rounds in this fashion. At each end you will be joining with a slip stitch, doing a chain, do not turn work, and continuing until all 3. Look how lovely those lines are. It's a really nice finish to the top end finger area of this hand warmer. And we're just slip stitching that last stitch, and we're going to cut a nice reasonable length tail for weaving in, tie it off, and you've completed the finger end of the hand warmer. Now if you do stitch that end a little bit too firmly, you'll find it's quite tight, so I do recommend that you try and do your yarn over slip stitch back loops fairly loose in order to not over tighten these bands as you crochet them. If you are finding they are firmer than you would like them, you could add 1 or 2 stitches into the count across the band. I'm really happy with that, looks really nice. Some people like to leave the bottom wrist area without a band, particularly for people who may have a larger wrist or bigger hand to place into the hand warmer. But for this pattern we will do the band so that you can see the finished article. So again, working with the right side facing, we're going to join our yarn in. Now you can do this with either a slip knot and draw the loop through, or just pull your thread through and create a chain to secure, and later we will tie off that end. Now you will repeat the same procedure as you have done for your top band. This band down on the wrist though requires to be just slightly larger, so I add 1 extra stitch each side of the marker. So start with your single crochets, working as evenly as possible around the edge, completing your rows and finishing this up with a slip stitch and tying off. Now if you prefer your wristband to be a little longer or less, this can be reduced in the number of rows. I love this pattern because it is very customizable to adjust. The important thing is to not have this area too firm, otherwise a larger hand will struggle to be placed through into the hand warmer. And this pattern is a multi-fit pattern. It does fit across small, medium and large hands. And there we have it, the final glove. Very happy with that. Just check that you've got plenty of give. If need be, go back and add a couple of stitches and loosen up your work. Now the job is almost done. We're just going to weave in our tail ends, and when I do this I like to move through several stitches first of all, weaving in to hide the thread. Then I like to come back in the opposite direction in a similar line to that, and then pop back again in the first direction a couple of stitches. Now what this does is it secures the work so that if there is any stretching on it, it pulls against itself within the work and stops those little tails wanting to pop out. One last try, pop the hand warmer on, make sure you're 100% happy with it. I love the look of this rib and I love how the band fits. We've only used part of a ball, but we will be going into our second ball to complete the pair. The pattern is available in the description below in our store, and we are on also TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, so join us there, and I hope you found this pattern tutorial helpful.